Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. Are you an author, speaker, coach, or entrepreneur building a brand in today's very crowded marketplace? How do you stand out? Join me on September 27th and share 97 minutes of your time for just $97 and learn how to empower your brand message and shine as a guest on podcasts. iHeart's doing it. Spotify's doing it. You should do it too. Join me and spend 97 minutes of your time for just $97. You can find the registry link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Elizabeth Wey. She is a visionary, the founder of Essence of Healing, an educator, a healer, an author, a speaker, and a counselor. Welcome, Elizabeth. How are you doing today?
Oh, very well. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for inviting me along. I'm really looking forward to this today.
I know it's very early for you, so I truly appreciate you getting up at this ungodly hour to be here with me today and share a little bit about your journey, your story, and the beautiful light you put out into the world through the work you do. I'm honored to have you here.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome.
So you are one hell of a busy woman. That's a lot of hats you wear and quite a resume. How do you find the time for all of this, and how do you prioritize it? How important is prioritization and organization for you?
Well, I guess, Brad, when we know our purpose, we naturally know how to prioritize our time. I think that comes naturally. It's all about balance, I think, and knowing that daily routine tasks are, I think, just as important as my spiritual work. And this is what gets me going. It's like I'm doing those tasks in order to receive the satisfying reward of doing what I love, helping those in need.
Yeah.
I remember that in my early 30s, I had a delightful privilege of meeting a female High Court judge. Mm-hmm. She was one of our world's South Pacific Island judges. And She was my inspiration to actually be this way in terms of prioritising, because she reminded me that before her work came her responsibility, importance of home life first. And I kind of thought, wow, that's a very smart way to do our work. And she said, I have to still feed the children a bowl of cornflakes on the breakfast table every morning, even if I'm sentencing somebody a few hours later. And I kind of laughed, but I thought that's so true. When we have our purpose life, we also have to have a balanced life with the ordinary things. And so that's how I set out, and that's what I do. I do all the things that need doing first in my day, and then I get on with what I love doing.
Beautiful. And so do you have a morning routine? What does your morning routine look like?
My morning routine, well, I actually get up about this time because my husband goes walking at this ungodly hour, and he thinks he's padding about in his quietness, but in fact he's not. So after he gets up, I put on some beautiful music. It's usually an Om chant because it brings a lot of peace into my mind. I do light some incense, and I just sit really quietly. I don't do anything particularly active because I find that time alone is very settling in terms of the day ahead. So it's a very simple routine, nothing ultra spiritual, although before I do my work or start my work, I connect to my spirit guides and make sure I'm in tune with Mother Earth, I guess, and then I'll move on from there.
Simple yet effective. I love it.
Very effective.
And so what drives and motivates and inspires you to keep going and excelling at all that you do, Elizabeth?
That really is an easy answer, Brad, because I have this enormous passion for helping people to find their way in life, actually, to understand who they are and to know that anything can be overcome. And a lot of people suffer, I can assure you. So my work is my drive, my work is to help people to see the goodness in themselves. I guess that's the best way of putting that.
Beautiful. And so can you share with us what you were doing for a living before you made the jump into entrepreneurship? And what was the catalyst for that?
My very first job, and I won't go back that far because that's 60 odd years ago, but my very first job was working in a little shop. I think I was employed to dust. But anyway, after that, I joined the Australian Air Force and trained as a dental nurse, that was during the Vietnam War years. So that was very interesting because it was a lot of action happening here. Fairburn in Canberra, Australia, is the main base for the Australian Air Force. It's the centre point of it. And so there were lots of things going on in terms of flying in and flying out of Vietnam and soldiers coming and going. So I got to sort of meet and experience a lot about life in that period of my life. And I went on to do some design work because I have quite an expertise in colour and worked and was invited by a large organisation in Australia to travel Australia and talk to architects and the like on the value of colour and how to use it. So that was very much a part of my youth until I married and had children.
Okay. And so I want to now dive in and start discussing all the good and juicy stuff about spiritual gifts and your spiritual journey. I'm curious to hear how your spiritual journey began. Was there a catalyst moment or moments in your life that led you down the spiritual path? And could you share those?
Of course, I'd love to do that. And it's an interesting question. When I saw that question and I thought to myself, sometimes we don't realise what we're experiencing when we're children in terms of these connections to the spiritual world and the knowing of the spiritual world. But from a very early age, just as far back as I can remember, I was rescuing anything my cat or dog could catch. So under a little meat cover, I had birds and insects and all, God only knows what I had under that thing. And then I grew up always wanting to be a nurse, always thoughtful, always caring, always crying if someone was sick, always trying to help people. And so I grew into understanding what my gifts were. And I think that for everybody, this is the best way to go about it because if we just dive in, we don't go through the stages that we need to go through to be solid in our understanding. It would be like eating. Instead of trying one lolly and knowing whether you like it or not, you just eat the whole bag and then you just don't want to eat the lolly anymore, right?
Yeah.
A bit like this work. You have to take it stage by stage and let it evolve. And so when I realised I had this ability, I can actually remember the first time it touched me deeply. I was in an antique shop and I put my hand on this piece of furniture and the shock of energy that went through me was just mind-blowing, quite frankly. So I started to realise that I had this energy that worked through my hands and then it developed from there. And it developed very organically. And I didn't really study with anybody or learn any particular style of healing in those days. I just let it unfold naturally. And I think that happening organically created a most amazing journey for me because it was an innocent journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I first started communicating with spirit, I actually didn't know I was communicating with spirit for a while. But when I did, I realised that I had these amazing spiritual guides who were by my side and guiding me and showing me the way. And they still do today, all these years later. I've been doing this work for over 40 years now.
Wow. And so when and how did you realize, like, that moment where you actually stepped into it, realized that you have the gift of healing people and your other spiritual gifts that you have? Did you struggle?
Really, it's just a pivotal moment. That's a really difficult one, to be honest, to answer you, because that's a long time ago. I'm just trying to think of, I think I did a healing on someone's back that had a really bad back. And I was standing there doing my work and I just use my hands and I just allow the energy to flow. I don't try and interfere with it. And the next minute I have this really ancient, a very old doctor in spirit that came that was obviously from India.
Okay.
And he's sort of speaking to me in this really old-fashioned way. When God speak to us, they speak to us in a language that we greatly understand. Otherwise, we'd never get anywhere, would we? People,
right.
Spiritual people from in the spirit world can connect with us in a way we will understand. And so he's leaning over me as if I'm his attending. I'm sort of supporting his attending work, and he begins working on Dennis. And the next minute, Dennis gets up and says, I'm feeling great. And this doctor looks at me in spirit and he said, I shall return and check on the patient tomorrow. And I guess that was the most profound experience, but I've had many since then, many amazing experiences since then.
That's incredible. And so a little bit further into your journey as a healer, I've heard many people say that we humans have all the tools within us to help in healing ourselves. Is that something that you subscribe to, you believe in, and you profess to be truth?
I would agree with you. The trouble is for most people is that they have this fear of not being good enough. And there's only one thing that can really be exercised to heal the self, in my opinion, no matter what your problem is, to believe you're worthy. And the realization that everyone is, despite any right or wrongs that they may have been part of their lives, is deserving to be heard by others. And also it's okay that you've made an error in your life because everything is a learning. But when we have to heal our mind first, we have to heal the belief that most people put on themselves, even if they have put on a front. It's a bit hard to put on a front in front of me. I can I can see through all those masks. But I'm just trying to find my words, because the thing is that if we hold all these burdens about who we are and who we shouldn't be, no matter how we might sound when we're talking, it's very difficult to heal. We have to learn to love ourselves first.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the bottom line.
Well, self is the foundation for everything. Everything starts within ourselves.
And ends with ourselves. That's what we're here for. Our soul journey is all about ourself.
Yeah.
It's ourself. We are on this journey on our own. In many respects, we're responsible for our soul. We are its guardian. We are the maker or breaker of the way we live our life. Nobody can live it for us.
That's right. Very powerful. Now, I know through previous conversation with you that part of the work you do is to help people discover and tap into what their spiritual gifts are. Now, this will be a 3-part question. So I guess, first of all, how did you discover that you had this gift or ability to help people discover and uncover and tap into their gifts? Secondly, do you believe that every single one of us has a spiritual gift or gifts within, and it's just a matter of, I guess, having the right guidance in order to uncover or figure out what those are? And thirdly, how do you teach people? What's your process to help people discover their gifts and tap into them?
I think my answer is going to be shorter than your question.
That's all right.
You like that?
Yeah, I do.
I was born to teach this work. It's my life purpose. It's I knew it the minute I taught my first student. There's some things you just innately know about yourself. And I'm so grateful for understanding that even though all this other work that I do, and which covers a lot of things, of course, not just healing, I have the ability to mentor people in a way that they realize their gifts themselves, because it's not for me to tell, but for the individual to recognize. And yes, the right guidance is essential, of course. But the truth is, I'm just showing each student how their inherent goodness is, and to see the light within them, and just to sweep away the judgments they've imposed on themselves. That's how we bloom and grow. So I call myself, in many respects, a seed planter. And I'm also pretty good at figuring out almost immediately that I meet someone who's ready to learn exactly what's right for them. So it just unfolds. And I've always held that belief. You can go along and learn something and add verbatim and leave the room and that's it, and you're done and you've got your bits of notes. But I have quite a specific way of teaching people. They get very heavily involved in the teaching so that they become responsible for their work and how they're going to apply it. So I'm actually quite firm about that, because you can go along to anything to learn, to teach, to be taught, but it's how you teach that's most important. And in this work, in my mind, it's absolutely essential, because for all the authentic, wonderful light workers out there, we also have some that are a bit of a challenge, like there is in any industry. So it becomes a very essential responsibility for somebody like myself and the work that I do. All my work's accredited around the world, all over the world, by 2 major organisations that accredit this work, which is all very important because people need to feel confident. So basically, to sum that up, I just inherently know what somebody's meant to learn.
Okay. And so you said that some people, you teach them what they're ready to learn, what they're ready to receive. Mm-hmm. So do you get, when you're working with someone, do you get an overall arching view or vision of what all of their gifts are, what all of their abilities are, and then just kind of, I guess, drip feed them what they're ready to receive at the time? Is that how you kind of go through your process?
I see it before we even start, but I don't tell them.
Ah, okay.
And when I do teach, I have written some very comprehensive manuals. They're like books. Mm-hmm. Thousands of hours of work have gone into these manuals that I've written. Mm-hmm. And the way I've written it is I'm not drip feeding them, Brad, but each module is like I'm turning on light, like a sliding door. They walk through one module and the next one opens up, and you just see the awareness come onto their faces and in their voices, because they go, well, that's what I do, or that's how now I know what it is that now I understand what it is that I can do. Mm-hmm. So I kind of get them to find it out for themselves, really. It's just that I know how to put it.
Yeah.
So that it's no point in me saying to you, Brad, you're going to be a psychic healer. How ridiculous is that? But if I say to you, Brad, let's do this. Let's do this course together and see where it takes us. And I tell you, all these years I've been doing this work, Brad, a lot of wisdom comes with that. So I know how to help people to absorb an awareness, because it's important to keep our feet firmly planted on the ground when we do this work, instead of getting off on a bit of a high, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spiritual work is very important, and it should never be taken lightly.
Absolutely.
I'm not as serious as I'm sounding this morning. I'm quite fun to be with when I'm teaching, by the way.
Well, I know I've had a conversation with you previously, and it's not that you're not fun right now. We're talking about something serious, but exactly. I know in our previous conversation, it was very just laid back and fun. We had laughs, and so I know that's who you are. I know that's there. So we're talking about something very serious, though, and as you said, this is something that needs to be taken seriously when we're talking about it and when you're teaching it.
That's right.
It's not to be taken lightly.
Well, the thing is that when I give a diploma, there's an exam at the end of all my work, or all the different courses that I teach, and I don't hand those diplomas out just because you've paid for a course.
Right.
No, I don't. You either go back and do some work, which is very rare, but when I hand that diploma over, I'm handing over my reputation, aren't I?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I can't, I don't do it for money. Because if money was my vision, of course I've got to earn money. You know, it's expensive to hold a business. But if money was my objective, then I'd just be handing those diplomas out willy-nilly.
Yeah.
And that's just not who I am. Mm-hmm. I couldn't sleep with myself if I was doing that. So when somebody receives a certificate or a diploma from me, depending on what they're learning, I'm very proud of them, and they can go out, and I know that they're going to be very authentic healers with a solid understanding of what they're meant to be doing.
Now, does everyone get a certificate or diploma? Of course, depending upon the program they go through with you.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. And so
sometimes I have to work a bit harder for them.
Do you also teach them the business side of things as well, or is it strictly just about the gifts and
No, I
honing those?
do at the end of some of the courses. Some of them, a couple of the courses that I have written are for self. The one I think I spoke to you about, the golden thread, which is for the esoteric student. That's to learn about your true spiritual self and how to see life through different eyes. So that's really a certificate of achievement, because you're not going out to do work because of that, if that makes sense. But when I'm offering these other courses, then I make sure that people understand what it means to build a business out of that, because just because you have a diploma or a certificate doesn't mean you have a business overnight. And I think anyone listening to this in business would understand it takes commitment and with a vision and a mission, and you work at it. It unfolds. So, yes, I give them some great ideas. I give them all my years of experience. And I often laugh. What I said to one of my students yesterday, I said, make the most of what I'm saying to you, because I've had to go through this over the rocks to give you this wisdom, and I'm giving it to you without you having to crawl over it yourself.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having all these years of understanding.
Beautiful gift that you're giving people. And so how has your journey as a spiritual healer transformed your own life and your personal beliefs?
Oh, God, it just changed it completely, actually. Just changed it completely, because when you take this journey and you understand the power of it, and you understand that you are responsible for every word you speak, every action you take, knowing that there is everything has to be answered for one way or the other. When we go home, which is what, pass away, when we go home to the life, you realize how you have to live your life. You have to live it purposefully. You have to live it with it having unconditional love for everybody, and you have to live a life of non-judgment. Now, that is not an easy thing to do, because everyone's very ready to judge, or very ready to, if they don't like someone, the idea of loving them is just abhorrent.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying we can't have an opinion, and I'm not saying that we have to like somebody, but we treat each other with the same respect that we want to be treated ourselves. So it changed me in terms of my patience and tolerance. It changed my way of being able to see that we're all on a path, a growth path at different stages, and some learn faster than others. But eventually we all learn, whether it's this lifetime or another one. So you learn to be accepting. And that's pretty much how I've changed in my life.
What would you say are a couple of the most profound spiritual insights that you've uncovered through your work?
I'm here. I'm just gathering my answer for you. I think the best way of explaining this to you is to tell you a story about the profoundness of this work. And it's a client that I did some work with. She lives in Gloucester in England, and here I am right over here in Queensland, Australia. And this woman was born crippled. She had club feet, her legs were disfigured, her hands were disfigured. She's in her early 80s now. She walked with 2 walking sticks. She walked with these built-up shoes. She had it was just a very difficult life. And she contacted me and asked me if I would do a remote healing for her. And I said, I'll do my best. So I went about what I was doing, and I asked for, when I'm working, Brad, I ask for medical help, or a physician or a surgeon or some kind of practitioner in spirit that specialises in any ill health or problem that an individual's got. So this particular day I asked for an orthopaedic surgeon to be by my side while I did that healing. At the end of it, I said to my client, it's done now. And I just saw them working on a hand. I saw them working on her feet. A couple of days later, she sent me a video and she was at a pharmacy, and the pharmacist was filming her walking towards him without her walking sticks. Not only that, but she'd never been able to hold a normal pen. The pen she would normally hold was a big fat one because of the hand. And all of a sudden she's just writing with this normal pen that you and I might use.
Wow.
And when she went to her osteopath, I think one of the occupational therapists, he said, "What have you done with your feet, Catherine?" And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "They're straighter." And then she told him, he said, "I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it for myself."
Wow.
So my part in all of that is that I have an open heart. I work from love. I trust the spirit world that I work with, because this is like we have on earth, there's goodies and baddies up there, just like there's goodies and baddies down here. So one has to be very aware of what they're doing. But there isn't a day goes by, Brad, when some miraculous thing doesn't happen. And I'm so deeply grateful that I was blessed with this learning and understanding from the spirit world, because that's where I learned it from.
Yeah.
I didn't sit in anyone's class, even though I'm teaching myself now, but I'm teaching the way I learned. So it's not a method, if that makes sense.
What an incredible gift. And so how long was that healing session with that particular client?
I think, I don't really look at the timing, because I'm sitting in a chair in kind of a trance, we call it, that's what we kind of call it, where you go into a semi-meditative state. I don't think I really looked at the time, but probably, I don't know, 3/4 of an hour.
That is so incredible.
I'll tell you another story, because I think the listeners would love to hear this. And this is actually not that long ago, and it's quite remarkable. I had a client who lived in Sydney, which again is another state of Australia. And she rang and she said, "Elizabeth, I really need your help." She always comes to me after she's been everywhere else, by the way. But anyway, that's okay. She had, let's say, tears running out of her eyes, but it was like fluid that was running out of her eyes. It just didn't stop. It was just constantly weeping. Yeah. So she went to an optometrist, and he said, "Oh, this isn't my territory. You need to go to an ophthalmologist." So she went there, and he gave her some drops, and he said, "If this doesn't work, you're going to have an operation." So she rang me and she said, "What can we do?" So I asked her to prepare herself, which I like my clients to lie on the bed so that they're just in a restful state while I'm doing the work. And then I get them to put their phone on vibration so I can do the work, and then I'll let them know that I'm finished. So anyway, this is what we did. And I asked for an ophthalmologist in spirit to be present, and there was a beautiful being of light next to me. And he began by injecting into more or less between the eyebrows at the top of the nose. And I saw him open up the bridge of her nose. And I saw him pull out a tiny little bit of calcification. And then he filled a blue light in there. And then the next minute, he just sort of seemed to close it up. There were no stitches. And then he put her on the table where there was a beam of light that it was like a big lazy Susan, and the table was in the middle of it. And the whole lazy Susan moved around, and then that area of her face would be washed with a beam of light. And then he put her in a kind of a little pod, which was green light, which was, I think, like a general final healing. And then he told me it was done. So I messaged my client and to let her know that I've finished. And she called me back and she said, "Elizabeth, the most amazing thing just happened." I said, "Oh, what happened?" She said, "I just felt this pressure on my nose as if I was being given an injection, but it didn't hurt." And then I saw this, and she repeated everything that had happened. And the minute that she said, "There's no more water, Elizabeth, it's gone."
Wow.
And no more tears or weeping, or however you want to put it. But this is I just love this, Brad, because it's not me. I mean, I have a role, but this is just what can happen. But on top of that, I have to add, for anyone that's listening and thinking Elizabeth's going to be able to heal everything, that's not the case. And this is a reality and a truth that I'm going to put to you now. If we're meant to be healed, we will be healed. If we haven't really moved forward in our life, if we're still dragging the chain, more or less, if we haven't learnt a lesson, then some illnesses are the lesson or the accident, whatever's happening, they're the lesson, because we are here on this earth to learn. And if we had everything just done for us, we wouldn't try. We wouldn't make an effort. I remember speaking to I do regression work, and I remember speaking to this subconscious mind of this woman, and this girl had a growth in her thyroid. And I said, may I speak to the subconscious who cares for Melissa, please? And this voice comes back out of Melissa's mouth because she's in regression. No, not really. Well, that's not very nice. She's come all the way here to have this regression today. Why aren't you? Well, she never listens to me. I'm always telling her that she needs to have her thyroid checked. Now, the subconscious mind did say it's benign, and there's a great story to the end of that. But the point I'm making here is, Brad, that we do get nudges. We don't hear a voice like the subconscious mind saying, Brad, go and get your thyroid checked. But we have a knowing, we just know, and most of us ignore it. We know we need to lose weight. We know we've got a lump on our arm that needs to be checked, but we ignore it. And so the only way for the subconscious mind or the soul on its journey to force us to recognize something is to create a physical response. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then
Thank you very much.
If we ignore it, it's to our own peril.
Yeah.
And so the spiritual world will always bring some kind of relief to everybody. I mean, that's just their role. They're not that mean.
Yeah.
But they also realize that individual maybe has to go through something to learn a big lesson.
Well, thank you for sharing that and for clarifying and putting that forward. That's very helpful. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So what have been, say, some of the most challenging aspects of being a spiritual healer, and how do you navigate them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, being a spiritual healer, of course, as you've just learnt from me, can be profoundly rewarding, but it does come with unique challenges, Brad. Emotional and energetic draining is a reality in this work when you're working with people, absorbing or encountering negative energies and emotions from others. And if you're not well trained, it can lead to incredible burnout and emotional exhaustion. So that in this work, we have to set clear energetic boundaries. It's essential. And we don't get caught up in the problem that the individual's got. I teach my students to be observers rather than to get themselves all caught up in the mayhem of whatever a person's. And I'm saying this with great respect because I do understand a lot of people's suffering. But I think setting clear boundaries is important, and also managing the expectations of people, Brad. People want to hear what they want to hear, or they expect immediate, miraculous results. So clear communication is something that's very important, and setting realistic expectations actually from the beginning of an appointment or the beginning of meeting somebody, and just explaining in plain and simple terms the importance of their involvement and the patient's required to heal. To navigate these challenges of being a spiritual healer does really require a lot of self-awareness. It requires ongoing education, and it requires a strong sense of trust. And I've learnt that maintaining clear boundaries and engaging in self-care and staying true to myself, that's what I do, and that's what I think is important.
Thank you for sharing that. I am loving this conversation. Elizabeth, this is so incredible, and you're sharing so much wisdom and beauty and important information. I'm just so grateful to be here and having this conversation with you. Thank you for allowing me into this space with you to share in all of this. I think it's so powerful and beautiful.
Thank you. I'm really pleased for the opportunity because, as I said to you earlier, I'm a seed planter, and my overall vision, I can't change the world, which a lot of people believe that they can, but I know I can change one person at a time or get them to see.
That's your contribution. Who
they are, one step at a time. That's how I contribute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Called contribute, depending on what country you come from.
Yeah. Thank you for that English clarification there. Can you explain the role of energy in spiritual healing and how you work with it to facilitate healing in others?
Well, energy is very real, both by thought and touch and feel, and we all know that. If you only have to look in nature to see energy working at its best. The power that the force of nature provides us is the ultimate lesson in energy. It does it naturally, and it does it in order. Mother Nature's been one of my greatest teachers, quite frankly. But when we're meant to do this work, it's a different form of energy to running a marathon that you need. Also, sometimes it feels like I'm running a marathon.
I'm sure it does.
But it's a different form of energy. And it's a gift that this is one gift we all have. And if people could realize that, oh my gosh, this world would be so different. Hands are the most exquisite healing tools on this planet. There's nothing more sublime. There's nothing more intelligent. There's nothing more awesome than our hands. And we can use those hands to hug. We can use those hands to hold a person's hand. We can use those hands to heal, because the spiritual world work through, it's quite a journey they take, but they work through our body and eventually send their energy down into our hands so that we can use these beautiful gifts we've been given to be of the greatest value to others. Now, how I explain thought energy and physical energy is I use the analogy of a fisherman's net. So when you look at a fisherman's net, it's usually either round holes or square holes or some sort of hole with knots in between it. So imagine you've got a fisherman's net. Let's say it's only a tiny one, 2 meters square. And I take my finger and I put it on the first knot on the outer edge. And if you could see the way I see the energy, you'll see this little light flick, go all around, going knot to knot, all around each hole till it gets to the other side. So the whole net is alive with energy, with light. And that's exactly how it works. So when we when we have a thought process, for example, and this is a really good example, the phone rings and you think, I know who that's going to be. The other person on the other end says, I'm going to call Brad. That thought energy is just as powerful as the spoken word. And that's why people should think very seriously about what they're thinking, because even your quiet thoughts have power. Am I answering your question, or did I go off?
Absolutely. No, yep. Totally. Yep. Absolutely. How has working as a healer contributed to your own personal growth and understanding of the human experience?
Wow. How can I answer that one? To think about that answer, because it's an important one, isn't it? This whole thing about humankind is that we have to find a way to help each other and to heal each other and to understand what it truly means to have a human experience. Many people come to me and they say, Elizabeth, what's my purpose? Or when they're coming for regression, I want to know what my life purpose is. Did you know, Brad, that everyone has the same life purpose?
No, I did not.
Would you like to know what that is?
Sure, of course.
We come here to be of service to one another.
Yes.
We really actually do. So we have to understand that really clearly, that that on one hand, we have to be selfish in terms of how we treat and look after ourselves. But on the other hand, when we give out, we're actually getting back. And if humankind could see it in that respect, gosh, this world would be so different. It would be such a different world. It would be a world where people were attuned to the spoken and unspoken needs of those we help, to listen to people, to hear their story, about their understanding of human emotions and thoughts and behaviours. Because there are so many intricate layers to the human psyche, Brad. And this healing work, it often involves guiding individuals through personal growth and transformation. That's what we're all helping each other to do. The work you're doing and providing an opportunity for people to hear and to share. And this kind of journey also reveals the resilience of humans, the human spirit and the capacity to change. And I've witnessed firsthand this process of healing and recovery, how humans can adapt and have what strength they've got. It's kind of inherent in them. And so this work constantly just highlights how individuals' well-beings contribute to the collective health of this planet. And this perspective has always reinforced the importance to me of community support and sharing experience in navigating life. We come here, or shall I say, we don't come here with a blank bus ticket. We come here with a ticket that's got very specific places that we need to go to or to learn from. It's a school of learning, planet Earth. And I know that's why I called my first book, Earth, the toughest bootcamp in the universe, because it is tough. It's meant to be tough because where the soul is learning a different facet every time it comes on its way to enlightenment, it needs to experience the highs and the lows. And that's what we're here for. And we're here to serve each other, to help each other to get through it all. Is my long answer.
Well, I mean, think about how amazing it feels when you are able to give back and help someone. It's an incredible feeling.
It's a wonderful feeling.
It's one of the best feelings in the world, I think.
It is. It is the most incredible feeling and such a joy. I had a lady here yesterday I did a healing for, and over the last 30 or so years, she's had a pain in her shoulder blade on the, I can't remember which side, doesn't matter. And I did some healing work on her, and all the spirit did. And she said, Elizabeth, I've had scans and x-rays and injections for all these years, and you've just got rid of the darn pain in a minute. I didn't get rid of the pain, but spirit certainly healed that. But I always like to get to the root cause of any illness or pain. There is always an emotional reason behind it, Brad. Always. Whether it's cancer, whether it's a sore tooth, whether it's a broken toe or a pain in the shoulder blade like my client had. And then I discovered, she's in her 60s, I discovered that her mother, she had 3 brothers, and her mother always made a fuss about them on their birthday, but her mother never acknowledged her birthday. Why wouldn't you have a pain in your shoulder? That pain was the hurt that she carried. And so by talking about it, and anyone that knows me well knows I get to the root cause of things pretty quickly. I don't muck around because what's the point? And so I was so joyful for her, Brad. Can you imagine the relief of something just disappearing?
Years of pain just gone.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But how incredible that is for you. What an incredible feeling to be able to give that gift of healing to somebody.
Oh, that's right.
So
but I'll tell you what
beautiful.
Comes with that. And it's probably been, I'm not holier than thou for anyone listening. I'm an ordinary human being. But the biggest struggle that I've had is that for me personally, is that I've always strived to be very humble in the work that I do. There's a very fine line between being humble and egotistical, a very fine line.
Yeah.
And sometimes to my detriment, I've remained a little bit too humble because I don't like walking around and saying, oh, I'm such a wonderful healer. That's just not who I am. One has to kind of balance it a little bit to make sure that you understand and recognize and appreciate and have deep gratitude for the gift that the Creator's given me, basically.
Yeah.
But at the same time, remain humble with it.
For sure. Absolutely.
Now, I'm not religious, right? At all.
Right.
But Jesus did exist. He was a real person, however you want to look at it. And I took a lot of insight, gained a lot of insight from him because he literally walked through his town or through the towns in the country he lived in, just sharing his healing abilities and teaching people about love. And I think that's extraordinary.
Absolutely.
All that time ago. And what really upsets me most of all is that we're not learning. We're still creating mayhem. We're still creating drama. What's wrong with our planet? What's wrong with these people?
Love is the most powerful force on the planet.
It is the only force.
There's nothing more powerful.
There is nothing more powerful. So what comes into play, unfortunately and sadly, is greed. And that...
Ego?
Well, same thing.
Yeah.
And that's been going on since time immemorial. I mean, it's Lemurian times, Atlantean times, right through, and we're still doing it. It's very distressing for me to see that because we could just live so peacefully.
We could.
Yeah.
We could. But I mean, really, I think the only answer is to keep doing the work that we are doing as light workers, as beautiful souls, and having that ripple out to the people we touch, the people that come, that we build community with, that come into our lives, share that love. That's the only thing we can do.
It is
continue to be who we genuinely and authentically and beautifully are, and continue doing that work, continue bringing people into our communities who are of like mind, to support us and to give back and support them as well in their journeys. That's all we can do. But we have to keep in mind that we have to keep doing it.
It's a way of life, and it really requires a commitment, and it really requires being authentic with yourself. It's one thing to say something outside of yourself. It's another thing to be actually living it and practicing within yourself.
Yeah.
And your authenticity will not shine through if you're not living that truly and honestly.
For sure. 100% agreed. Thank you for sharing all of that, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
So I'm curious, what do you do in your daily practices or rituals to maintain your spiritual health and effectiveness as a healer?
Well, I'm very fortunate to have quite a peaceful home to live in. Although I have 13 grandchildren, 5 children, none of them are at home anymore. So I've sort of earned my brownie points, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I have a very peaceful home and a very beautiful husband who's a very peaceful man. And so it's very easy for me to, once my daily work's out of the way, is to come up into this room I'm sitting in now, which is the healing room, and be able to do my work with people and just write whatever I feel like doing, Brad. It's not a daily thing. I don't do the same thing every day. You sort of touched on that earlier, and I have my morning ritual, which can change from time to time, depending on the mood I'm in. Some mornings I just sleep in. But I'm always mindful of my, this is going to sound, I hope this comes out the wrong way. I'm always the right way. I'm always mindful of the power that I have and the ability to help people.
What is one tip or one takeaway that you can provide that listeners can take away and implement immediately to start shifting their mindset and incorporating or leaning into a little bit their healing and intuitive gifts into their lives and utilizing them to shift and change their lives?
Well, the first thing they need to do is to be honest with themselves. That's just essential, because nothing can change, nothing will shift until we're honest with ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we sit down and with a whip and start belting our back. What it means is that we sit down and recognize that innately we are a good person. So that really has to happen first, because there's no one single answer to this, Brad, because everybody's going through their own journey. But I also think that it's very important to have someone to hear you. I have this thing about I'm listening. One of the things that I say when I'm working with people, and I do mean it genuinely, is that I hear you. And people want to be heard. They want someone to feel and hear what they're feeling and what they're thinking. They want someone to hear them. And when we get to that point, when we feel strong enough to sit with someone and share those feelings, which can happen in a twinkle, but it has to be someone that's ready to hear, not somebody that's holding their breath, waiting to tell them their story.
Yeah.
So once we get through that, once a person gets through that, which I'm suggesting anyone listening does that, they find someone, actually they can even look in the mirror and talk to themselves, to be quite frank, and hear what they're saying. That's a very good beginning.
Okay.
And to know that the divine creator didn't put us here because we were horrible people. He put us here because we are worthy, and he believes we're worthy of learning and growing a bit further. So what I'm saying to the listeners here today is the process of learning and healing and growing is a process. And all you need to do is say to yourselves, today I'm going to begin to heal myself. And for every thought, every action, every word, every deed is based on that vision.
Beautifully said. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. You are the founder of that's your overall overarching business, Essence of Healing, right? Can you tell us a bit more about the company? I know you do healings for people. You just give us an overarching view of the company, of the brand, of the business.
Yes. Well, it's kind of a little bit a soft brand, if that makes sense. I called it the Essence of Healing because that's what I believe it to be. It's more than a business name. It's actually a reality of what I do, the essence of it all. So to cover that, there are many ways that I help people, both in private practice and in my teaching work. So I have a series of things that I do. I wrote a technique some years ago, which is, as I said earlier, is internationally accredited. It's called the Sacred Subconscious Technique, but most people would recognize it if I said a past life regression work. But I've written a very specific way of doing it. And I do that because I do this work because I get deep into the subconscious mind, the psyche of the individual, for them to be able to find the answers that they need most of all. And I can assure you, it changes your life. It changes the way you think about yourself. You see into lives that you've had that bring you to a deeper understanding of why you're here and what you're doing here today. That is a very profound experience. I also have written a course, which I also practice in private practice, and it's called Dying to Go Home. Because believe it or not, a lot of people are scared of dying. They're afraid of how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. Will I be in pain? What's going to go on? So my work is I work a lot with people that are in palliative care, and I also work with people that want to volunteer or work in palliative care. So I teach a lot about the journey of blooming and flourishing and death and decay, so that they understand the circle of life and what that's all about. So I integrate that. I'm a great believer in vibrational medicine. So I have in my clinic here, I have a beautiful range of flower essences, which are very powerful. And I use those in conjunction with advice and support that I give an individual. So so it goes on. And energy healing and psychic awareness and all these things that I've learnt over the years, the essence of healing, which is what this work is.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
As mentioned, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, you're an author. I would love for you to speak a little bit about the books you've written, titles, content, subject matter in the books, things like that.
Well, the first book I wrote, which is, I mentioned before, Earth, the toughest bootcamp in the universe. But there is a bit of a funny story behind it. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please.
So I've been with my husband for 43 years. It's our second marriage. And he'd determined that he would never marry again after his first marriage. And I wasn't really interested either. And then one day, years later, 5 years ago only, he said, in 2015, he said, if you write that book, I'll marry you. So I wrote it. But that really wasn't the reason I wrote it, but I did get married, I must say.
I love that story.
It's hilarious, really, because I said, the book's written now, and he went, oh.
Time for you to hold up your end of the bargain.
Yeah, so he's a bit scared of how big this wedding would be, but it was a few friends on our balcony at home, so it wasn't such a big deal. But I wrote the book and each chapter in that book is a journey that I've taken an individual on into a past life. And it's just life-changing to read it.
I'm sure.
To see that we actually all are very similar. And we all have these amazing journeys that we take for our soul to grow and learn from. There is one chapter in the book which most people read it and cry. Some people read it half a dozen times, and it's titled A Letter from My Father. And it is a letter from my father. And he was such a wise, wonderful human being. And he's writing the letter from a place called the Gilbert River, which is thousands of kilometres right up in the Gulf of Carpentaria of Queensland, where he and my mother, after World War II, went and lived in a tent and mined for gold.
Wow.
And then over the years, they went back and back. And the last time Dad was back there, he was 80. He and Mum got in their little caravan and went all those miles right up into the Gilbert. And that's when he wrote me this letter. And it kind of goes, Gilbert River, population 3. And then he wrote about the beauty of nature, and he wrote about the importance of laughing, the importance of loving. And it's just a remarkable letter. It says a lot. Mm-hmm. So the whole book is really that. And I wrote about my own experiences leading into the work that I'm doing and the challenges that I had and some particular experiences that I had. Some of it's a bit hair-raising, but it's all very true. And a friend of mine, his name's Paddy. He lives in Dublin, of course. Why wouldn't a Paddy live in Dublin?
Yeah.
And he's read the book a few times, and he said to me, what I like about your book is that there's no fluff in it, Elizabeth. There's no sort of bulky stuff trying to build the book out. Every word, every chapter is the real deal. The second book I wrote, called The Sacredness In You, was written not as a paperback book, but it's also a PDF. And if anybody would like a copy, I'm very welcome to share it. They can ask through you.
Yep.
And they can give you their email to you, and I'll gift it to them today.
Beautiful.
But it's learning about how sacred we all are, and it's learning about self-worth, and it's learning about, so one of the chapters is called The Thorn. And the reason I wrote that particular chapter, Brad, is because everyone has a thorn, and it's recognizing what that thorn is and being able to remove it so you can keep moving forward in life. And another chapter I wrote, just cut me short if I'm talking for too much.
No, it's okay.
Another chapter I wrote was about self-worth. And in actual fact, and instead of me writing about it, I had all these different people send me their impression of themselves regarding self-worth. And one of the responses I got was from a friend of mine that was dying. He's actually was Canadian, believe it or not. And he died quite a difficult death. And in writing his answer, he realised that this cancer that he had, which was associated with his liver, which is where we hold anger, and other surrounding areas, he realised what the anger was that he'd been holding on to his whole life since he was 17 years old. And at the end of writing that, I can tell you the story if we have time, but at the end of that, he actually wrote, "You've got to do the work." And I loved that because that's exactly right. And we hold on to all these emotions.
And as you said, when we hold on to those emotions, it manifests in dis-ease in our bodies.
It's going to kill us. It always does.
For sure. Elizabeth, what is an unexpected blessing or occurrence in your life that you're grateful for?
I don't know whether it was unexpected, but I'm deeply grateful for my children. Anyone that's a parent will understand value of the gift of children.
Who in your life has had the biggest impact on you and why?
Wow. That is a really hard one to answer because a lot of people have impacted me in some really significant ways, both good and bad, by the way. But I think in terms of somebody that truly impacted the way I see life was Nelson Mandela. There's a woman that I'd like to talk about today, but putting the political part of his life aside, he was the most peaceful person within himself. And he proved that when he was incarcerated for all those years. He lived in a small cell with a lot of other men, but he was able to use his mind. And even when he was in chains, belting rocks, which is what he was doing on his daily work, he had this incredibly powerful mind that took him away from the immediate horror of what he was experiencing, which allowed him to still remain a soft, gentle individual. And I learned a lot from that.
What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful?
I call it the knowing. I just know. And that's not meant as an egotistical thing. I just have this incredible ability to understand people immediately. And the other thing is that my hands, if I put my hand on you, you can tell me anything you like, but I see the full story. I feel your emotions. I don't read your mind. which is probably just as well. I feel your emotions. I can feel your pain. I can feel grief. I can feel where it's hurting. That's my gift.
How do you define success? What does that word mean to you?
I define success as just being peaceful inside myself. If one has peace within, then that is a great success.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
A lot. Empowerment means that we're being of service to ourselves and we're being of service to others by providing words and actions that are going to give that opportunity to the individual to move forward in their life. That's what I believe empowerment is.
Love it. Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section. So the next grouping of questions will just be 1, 2, 3-word answer type thing.
Off you go.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Love.
What is your favorite self-care practice?
Loving myself.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Love.
What's one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
Love.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
That I made a difference in the...
What is one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
My compassion for people.
And that concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. I created a bonus question that I did not send you ahead of time. If you could take one feeling or one belief and bottle it and give it to people, what would it be?
I'm going to sound very boring, but I'd give them a medicine I'd give a medicine in that bottle. When they took it, they couldn't help but just love themselves.
That's not boring. That's beautiful. If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
Elizabeth, why does the soul keep coming back to earth to
Okay.
keep encountering all these challenges?
Go ahead, answer the question.
Well, Brad, as it so happens, we're slow learners and I liken the soul to a multifaceted diamond. And when we come on our first journey to earth, let's just stick with earth for the time being, this multifaceted diamond is all the little facets are opaque. And so we come down to this lifetime, we go through whatever the lifetime is, and then we go back home and that little facet is polished. And then we keep coming around and around, learning more and more, relearning, trying to understand until finally the diamond is polished completely. So our purpose of having a life on earth, the reason we keep coming back is A, we're slow learners, or B, but most importantly, for the soul to stop reincarnating back onto earth, it needs to have experienced every facet of what it means to be human or to be a living being. And that's when it becomes easy not to judge, because in all our lives, we've been perpetrators, we've been victims, we've been short, tall, fat, thin, rich, poor. That's the purpose of the soul coming to earth. And that should stop everyone in their tracks from judging, because that old saying there, but for the grace of God go I, is very true.
That's powerful.
It is.
Thank you.
It's very real. And you discover all these things over the years when you do these regressions for people and you see what they've done or what's been done to them.
Yeah.
And we all feel the wound. We all feel the victim. We all feel, why me? And when people say to me, why me? And I said, well, you asked for it. When we come back, we have to fix what we didn't fix the last time. There are people, Brad, that come back to bring joy to the world, and they come back voluntarily. We don't get forced to come back, any of us, but we eventually have to. We can't move forward on our soul journey until we do. But there are some that actually come back to bring joy to the world. And one of the greatest examples of that is David Attenborough, who's committed his life to planet Earth, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And look what we've all gained from that, this incredible understanding of nature through the eyes of David Attenborough, which we would never, ever have seen otherwise.
Amazing. Elizabeth, if you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
I couldn't wait for you to ask me that question. She's not alive today.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, but I would sit down and have a conversation with Kasturba Gandhi. That's Gandhi's wife.
Okay.
Because her determination against the ill treatment of Indian immigrants in South Africa, which she was arrested and sentenced to hard labour for, she was so determined to help women in the world. And while she was in prison then, she led other women in prayer and encouraged to educate women through She actually asked educated women to teach uneducated women how to read and write in jail. And she worked for many welfare organisations. She taught women hygiene and discipline and health and reading and writing. And the majority of her time she spent in ashrams serving, which I just think is, if I was a single woman on my own, I would be doing something very similar in the world. And they used to refer to Kirstebara as Ba, which means mother, because she served as a mother to so many women and men. It's all very equal, because don't forget, in some lifetimes we've been men and other lifetimes we've been women.
Right.
So there's no divide. But I really admired her. And Gandhi wasn't always the easiest person to live with either, as much as he's revered today. And he's smiling at me because he's my master guide. So I'm very aware of his presence with me in the room today. But he would agree with me. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
To trust myself without fear or expectation. And most of all, not to lean on others for validation of my choices of the person that I am. When we seek validation, we lose strength in ourselves. And I think when you're younger and as you're growing up, through all those years, you're looking for someone to approve of what you do. The greatest gift we can give ourselves is to believe enough in ourselves that we don't need validation from anyone else. And do you know who taught me that? My son, Damien. He taught me that. When I wrote that book at the toughest bootcamp in the universe, and then I got my doctoral degree in metaphysics, and I was telling him, he said, "Do you want me to validate that for you, Mum?" In my head, I'm going, "Yes, I do. I want you to tell me how amazing I am." But the truth is, he was right. I should be proud enough of myself without requiring anyone to tell me otherwise. And if we all learnt that, then we wouldn't be manipulated, would we? Because the minute you want validation from somebody, you're giving them some of your life force, and then you become a little bit of a puppet to them, where you're looking always for an answer from them, and then that creates ego in the other person. It's all very interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is powerful. Lastly, Elizabeth, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your tribe, your people, your corner of the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
Well, I'd hope that it's not just my corner of the world. I would hope that it was for the whole planet, actually. For the people of this world to embrace non-judgment and unconditional love. Because every person on this earth is on their own unique journey, Brad, facing struggles and seeking happiness. So instead of judging others, to practice empathy and understanding. And by offering unconditional love, we do create a world where everyone feels valued and supported. That would be my dream, and my hope is that we commit to loving one another without conditions and judgments. And I really hope the people of the world understand that this is the path to true unity and peace, knowing that every decision we make is a choice based on free will. That's my speech. That's what I'd like to say, and I hope it plants a seed in those that are listening today.
Beautiful. Elizabeth, thank you so very much for this incredibly beautiful, insightful, amazing conversation. You are a bright, beautiful light in this world, a beacon of hope and light. Thank you for taking and making the time to be here with me today. Share a little bit about your story, your journey, and the beautiful light you put out into the world through all of the incredible work you do. I appreciate you. I am so grateful to be connected to you, to call you a friend, and to have you as a member of the Empowerography community. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Brad. It was a pleasure. And just to remind, if anyone would like a copy of the Sacredness in You, to let you know, and I'm happy to share it. So blessings to everybody. I hope you have a beautiful evening if you're over at that side of the world, and a beautiful day if you're here. God bless you all.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Elizabeth Wey. She's a visionary, the founder of Essence of Healing, an educator, a healer, an author, a speaker, and a counselor. Once again, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.